Hi gang. So we're in COP2360. This is C#. Now in this video we're going to talk about object-oriented design and specifically Project 9 or P9. So in this project, let's go look at the PDF for it. In this project we are only designing a class named Constructor, and it should keep the following information. So we have these three attributes associated with this Constructor class. So let's talk about what the class is. And we've talked about it in other videos. A class is code that can have attributes and functionality, or variables and constants, along with methods associated with it that we can reproduce. Now, some instances of these that are examples of these that we've used in the past. The integer class. We have created numerous projects that utilize the integer class, and we create an instance of the integer class. We give it a name, and sometimes we will assign default values, and we initialize them, and others we just wait for the user or the program itself to assign some value over time when it's executed. So we're going to create a class called Constructor. It has these three attributes. So the Constructor has a name, there's a Constructor ID, and there's a start date for the Constructor. That Constructor now has to have, I should say, that Constructor class has to have methods, or we call them functions in certain instances, but it's synonymous. Accessory and Mutator functions, which means we need the ability to get the value that's in here and set the value that's in there. So we need to access these variables to get, which means retrieve the value that's there, or set, meaning mutate or modify that value. Okay? So with that said, let's go look at what we have here. And I've got this blank replit. I've included system.console so I don't have to write console.whatever over and over again. Now, one of the things that's noted in that PDF, I'll go back and touch on this. For this assignment and P10, you need an algorithm to go along with it, which essentially that's a Word document that explains what's happening in this code. Now, this code will be used for P10. So what we're going to do in P9, you're going to have to reuse that code and add to it for P10. So if for whatever reason you decide not to do P9, you're leaving yourself in a bad position when it comes to P10. So with that said, let's go talk about P9 and object-oriented design. So I want to be able to create an instance of this Constructor class. Well, I don't have a Constructor class yet. So let's come down here and you know what? It needs to be outside of my given class that Replit's created. Let's put a little bit of space in here. I want it public so it can be accessed from outside. I'll call it Constructor. Now, hang on, let's back up. I don't want to create the constructor yet. I really want to create the class first. So we'll go class Constructor. I'm going to come up with a class called Constructor, opening and closing. So I have my default class, which is program, And now here's my additional class called Contractor. So when I execute this main.cs, here's my only main. It's here in my program class. I don't have a main in Contractor. So to be able to create an instance of Contractor or run Contractor, I'm going to have a constructor. Now, that constructor, I want it to be in line right here. I want it to be public. That's what I started writing before because I had it in my head. All right, so here's our constructor. And things that we're going to have happen in here relative to the constructor. Now I need 3 things that it said it wanted me to have. I need a name, a number, and a start date. All right. Name, number, and start date. So let's get our indentation right. Go that route. Private. These things are only going to exist within my class. I'll call it contractor name. I'm not going to give it a value yet. I'm just reserving the space for it. Now this is the contractor number. And then lastly, I want this to be an instance of date time. Contractor start date. So at this point, I've got my main, and that's in the default class. But now I've also got my new class that I've created, which is my contractor class. All right. Now, what I really need to do is I need to indent these things so that I can see the line for my contractor. I can see the line here. There we go. It's a little better. Let me back that up. There we go. So I have reserved space and assigned names to 3 variables. I need to set default values for each one of them. All right. I'm going to give it a default value so that should somebody forget to give these things values, I'm going to go ahead and give them a value by default. Now, got this thing called this. Now, when we create an instance of contractor, it's going to have its own name. It could be contractor C1. And our code is going to call it C1. And it'll be C1.contractor name default value. C1.contractor name. C1. Now the next contractor is C2. C2, so this refers to the name of the object that we're creating. I can have many contractors. Each one's going to have its own name. So here I'm setting default values for this class that I've created, or the object that we are creating. Now, from there, I want to go ahead and should, at the time this thing is being created, should the user or the program have data to set values other than the defaults, let's go ahead and create a constructor that allows values to be assigned. So there's one with no values. Let's go ahead here. We'll call this one with values. So now I've got two separate constructors. One, I'm not creating any values. And here I forgot my parentheses, they're required. So if I create an instance of contractor and I don't give it a contractor name, there's the value. If I do give it a contractor name, I can modify it there. Now, the other things I needed, so I've got this part of it from here on up. I got that part of it done. It's these accessor and mutator functions that I don't have done in this. And accessor mutators. Now, they're not difficult. They really are not. So my accessor and mutators, let me go, I'm going to create one called contractor name, and I want my accessors and mutators to be associated with the name of whatever it is that I'm dealing with. So the naming needs to be aligned with what I'm doing. So I'll call this one contractor name. And there's two things that I want to do in here. Put it right in here. I want to get, and I want to set. So wait a minute, get and set. Here's my get, and there's my set. And what am I doing in get and set? We talked about it before. I've got three variables. I need to be able to get what's in here, go access it. And I need to set it or mutate it or change it, if you will. So I need to have access to whatever's there, and I need to be able to acquire whatever it is. So get. How do we deal with get? Well, get is a method that returns a value. What's it going to return? It's going to return whatever's in this thing right here. This thing right here. Now, come down to set, and set, I'm going to go ahead come on now. Set, I'm going to, sorry about that. I'm going to say this dot contractor underscore name, that value, is equivalent to whatever value. All right. Now, when we proceed later on, we're going to have these gets and sets that we're going to deal with at some point in time. And when I refer to the instance of this class, whatever contractor object I've created, it'll be C1.contractor name is equivalent to, so I'm assigning some value to whatever's in there. This one, I don't necessarily need to have that explicit this dot. Okay. So with that said, here's a accessory mutator for contractor name. Now, make my text a little bit smaller so we can do this a little easier. I'm just going to copy contractor number. Somehow I copied this wrong. Okay, so there's name. This one's going to be all number, number, number. And this one's going to be start date. Start date, start date, and start date. So I haven't done anything yet to create an instance of this class. All right. Put a comment in here, contractor name. You know what? I'll go ahead and put that here as well. And then here as well. There we go. I've got my constructors. Got two. One with no values here. One with values here. And I have the ability to create an instance of the contractor and give the person name, whatever, and create many instances of that contractor. If I run this thing, what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. There is no anything happening in here in my main. Let's see what kind of problems it had with it. It says main. It says it's got a problem on line 40. I didn't, yeah, look at there. I did not end my and try it. I had some semicolons missing to end or terminate my statements. What do we have left? The type contractor already contains a definition for contractor number. It says line 49. 49. Look at 49. Let's see here. Get and set contractor number happens to be an integer. And this is date time. One of the issues with me going through and doing my copy paste thing that I do so much, it's just data types, making sure that the data types align. And we're back to 49. Let's see. You know what? Let me go ahead and rather than write this the way that I have, I'm going to write it. These are separate. These are not the name of those variables. These are the name of the accessor and mutator functions. There's number. And here will be contractor start date. Okay, these access those variables. This is the name of the method itself. So we should be fine now. But it's good to understand exactly when it tells you, hey, you've got this problem. Here's where it exists. It ran, it didn't do anything, but that's a good thing. And that we didn't have it actually doing anything. We set up the code to where if we wanted to, we could do something, but we haven't actually utilized this class yet. But it threw no errors on this go through. So we've got our overall program. We've got our main. We have our new class that we've declared and created. And what's happening here? Here's our class. Attributes associated with the class. Variables. Different data types, string, int, and date time. We've got two constructors. One is a default constructor with no values. The second is a constructor that allows the user or the system to add or assign values to those attributes or variables. We've got an accessor function. In it is get and set. So these are functions to get the contractor name and set the contractor name. Here's one for contractor number. Go get it and set it. Date, get it and set it. Right. So it didn't have a problem with these. What we're going to do on the next level or next project after 9, we'll move on to 10. Right. And in 10, we will actually create an instance of this contractor.